3 weeks after saving Luna, Jiwoo received an invitation. The Galactic Medical Alliance wanted her to speak at their annual conference. They wanted her to present her research on bloodworm treatment. They wanted her to teach doctors from across the galaxy. The conference was being held at a massive space station called Unity Hub. It was 10 times bigger than Station Harmony. Thousands of doctors and scientists would be there. Jiwoo had never spoken in front of such a large crowd before. She felt nervous, but she also felt excited. This was a chance to help even more creatures, a chance to spread knowledge that could save thousands of lives. She decided to bring Luna with her. Luna was the living proof of her success. People could read reports and look at data, but seeing Luna alive and healthy would make everything real, would make everything undeniable. The journey to Unity Hub took 3 days. Luna traveled well. She seemed to enjoy watching the stars through the ship's windows. She would sit on Jiwoo's lap and stare out at the endless darkness with those bright golden eyes. Sometimes she would chirp softly as if she was commenting on what she saw. When they arrived at Unity Hub, Jiwoo was amazed by its size. The station was like a small city floating in space. There were gardens inside, parks, restaurants, hotels. Everything someone might need. The conference center alone was bigger than most buildings on Earth. On the day of her presentation, Jiwoo woke up early. She was too nervous to sleep. She checked her notes one more time. She checked on Luna, who was sleeping peacefully in her carrier. The little Mira looked so calm, so confident. If Luna could be brave, then Jiwoo could be brave too. The conference hall was huge. Jiwoo stood backstage and peeked through the curtain. The room was full. Every seat was taken. There were even people standing at the back. She saw doctors from dozens of species, Veldans, Felox, Trellans, Zentari, species she had never seen before. All of them were here to listen to her. A coordinator called her name. It was time. Jiwoo picked up Luna's carrier and walked onto the stage. The lights were bright. The crowd was silent. Hundreds of eyes watched her. She set Luna's carrier on a table and opened it. Luna stepped out and looked around with curiosity. There was a soft sound from the audience. Surprise. Wonder. Many of them had never seen a healthy Mira who had survived bloodworms. Jiwoo began her presentation. She thanked everyone for coming. She explained how Luna had come to her. She explained the condition Luna had been in, dying, covered in parasites, given up as hopeless. Then she showed the before scans on the large screen behind her. The audience gasped. The scans showed hundreds of bloodworms inside Luna's tiny body. It looked impossible that any creature could survive such an infection. But then, Jiwoo showed the afterscans. Clean, clear, no parasites at all, just healthy tissue and organs. She explained her treatment step by step. The anti-parasitic medicine, the supportive care, the careful monitoring, the patience. She made it clear that this was not magic. This was not luck. This was science. This was medicine based on thousands of years of human experience fighting parasites on Earth. A doctor from the Trellan species raised his hand. He asked if the treatment was dangerous. He said that when bloodworms die, they release toxins. Those toxins could kill the host. How did Jiwoo prevent that? Jiwoo explained that this was why supportive care was so important. The body needed help to filter out the toxins. Extra fluids helped the kidneys work better. Nutrients kept the organ strong. Protective medicine shielded the liver. The treatment killed the parasites slowly, so the body had time to clean itself. It was all about balance. Kill the parasites fast enough to save the host, but slow enough that the host could survive the treatment. Another doctor stood up. She was a Felox named Hana. She said this treatment seemed very basic, very simple. Why had the Felox never thought of this? They had brilliant doctors, advanced medicine. How had they missed something so obvious? Jiwoo answered carefully. She did not want to insult anyone. She explained that different species had different experiences. Most species in the galaxy evolved on safe worlds, peaceful worlds. They never had to fight constant battles against diseases and parasites. They never developed that kind of medical knowledge. It was not their fault. It was just their history. But humans were different. Earth was not a safe world. Earth was dangerous. Everything on Earth was trying to survive against constant threats. Humans spent thousands of years learning how to fight parasites, bacteria, viruses, and every other danger. That struggle shaped human medicine. It made humans experts at fighting infections that other species thought were impossible to cure. Keeper Lyrae stood up from the audience. She spoke about how the Felox had lost so many Miras to bloodworms. She talked about the grief, the helplessness, the feeling that nothing could be done. But now there was hope. Now there was a way to save these precious creatures. She thanked Jiwoo with tears in her eyes. The audience began to applaud. It started slowly, then grew louder and louder. People stood up. The applause became thunderous. Jiwoo felt her face grow hot. She had not expected this. She had just done her job. She had just been a doctor doing what doctors do. After the presentation, dozens of doctors came to talk to her. They asked questions. They took notes. They wanted to learn everything. Some of them had patients with bloodworm infections right now. They wanted to start treatment immediately. Jiwoo gave them all her contact information. She told them to message her anytime, day or night. She would help, however she could. Dr. Hana approached her. The Felox doctor asked if Jiwoo would come to the Felox homeworld. They had a medical academy there. They wanted Jiwoo to teach their students. They wanted to learn not just about bloodworms, but about the human approach to medicine, about fighting instead of giving up, about courage in the face of impossible challenges. Jiwoo agreed. She would go to the Felox homeworld. She would teach. She would share everything she knew. That was the whole point of medicine. To help. To heal. To make sure knowledge spread as far and wide as possible. Over the next few months, Jiwoo traveled to many worlds. She taught at medical schools. She treated patients. She worked with local doctors to develop treatment protocols for different species. Every species had slightly different biology. The treatment had to be adjusted for each one. But the basic principle was always the same. Use medicine to kill the parasites. Use supportive care to help the body survive. Be patient. Be careful. Never give up. And everywhere she went, she brought Luna. The little Mira became famous across the galaxy. Children wanted to pet her. Doctors wanted to scan her. Scientists wanted to study her. But Luna was always gentle and patient. She seemed to understand that she was important, that she represented hope for so many others. Reports started coming in from across the galaxy. Other Miras were being saved. Other creatures were recovering from bloodworm infections. The success rate was not perfect. Some patients were too sick. Some did not respond to treatment, but many did survive. Many were saved because doctors now knew what to do. The galaxy was learning an important lesson. They were learning that humans had something special to offer. Not just technology, not just strength, but knowledge gained from surviving on a world that tried to kill them every day. Knowledge about fighting back when everything seemed hopeless. Knowledge about saving lives that others thought were already lost. And it all started with one small Mira named Luna. One creature who was abandoned to die. One creature who survived because one human doctor believed that every life was worth saving, no matter how impossible it seemed. 1 year had passed since the day Commander Torvin had abandoned Luna in the medical bay. So much had changed since then. Station Harmony had expanded its medical facilities. There was now a whole wing dedicated to treating parasitic infections. Doctors from many species came to study there. They learned human medical techniques. They learned about fighting diseases instead of running from them. Jiwoo had become one of the most respected doctors in the galaxy. She received awards and honors from many worlds, but she did not care about fame or recognition. She cared about saving lives. She cared about teaching others. She cared about making sure that no creature ever had to be abandoned again, just because everyone thought the situation was hopeless. Luna was still with her. The little Mira had become more than just a patient. She had become a friend, a companion, a constant reminder of why the work mattered. Luna followed Jiwoo everywhere. She sat on the desk while Jiwoo worked. She slept on the bed at night. She greeted visitors with happy chirps. She had become the unofficial mascot of the medical wing. Today was special. The Galactic Medical Council was meeting at Station Harmony. They had come to present Jiwoo with the Star of Healing. It was the highest medical award in the galaxy. It was given only to doctors who had made extraordinary contributions to medicine, doctors who had changed the way everyone thought about healing. The ceremony was held in the main conference room. The room was filled with important people, council members, station administrators, senior doctors. Even Commander Torvin was there. He had asked to attend. He wanted to see the doctor who had done what he thought was impossible. Jiwoo stood at the front of the room with Luna in her arms. The little Mira looked around with calm, curious eyes. She was not nervous. She trusted Jiwoo completely. The council leader spoke first. He was an old Trellin named High Counselor Doyoon. His voice was deep and warm. He talked about Jiwoo's achievements. He talked about how she had saved not just one life, but thousands. He talked about how she had changed the way the galaxy thought about impossible medical problems. He talked about courage and determination and the special qualities that humans brought to medicine. Then he called Jiwoo forward. He placed a beautiful crystal medallion around her neck. It was the Star of Healing. It glowed with a soft blue light. Jiwoo touched it gently and felt tears in her eyes. This was an incredible honor, but it also felt strange. She had just done her job. She had just been a doctor. The room filled with applause. But then Keeper Lyrae stood up. She asked if she could say something. The council leader nodded and stepped aside. Lyrae walked to the front of the room. She carried a small box in her hands. She explained that the Felox people had their own gift for Jiwoo. She opened the box and took out a pendant. It was made of crystal that glowed with a warm golden light. She said this was called a heartstone. The Felox gave heartstones only to those who had saved Felox lives. It was their highest honor, their most precious gift. Lyrae placed the heartstone in Jiwoo's hand. It was warm. It seemed to pulse gently like it had its own heartbeat. Jiwoo could not speak. She could only nod and smile through her tears. This meant more to her than any official award. This came from the heart. This came from gratitude and love. After the ceremony, there was a reception. People came to congratulate Jiwoo. They shook her hand. They thanked her. They told her stories about the creatures she had helped save. A Velden trader told her about his daughter's Mira, who had been dying of bloodworms. Now the Mira was healthy and playing with his children. A Zentari doctor told her about a whole colony of creatures that had been saved using her treatment protocols. Commander Torvin approached her near the end of the reception. He looked nervous. He said he wanted to apologize again for abandoning Luna. He said he had been a coward. He had let fear control him. But Jiwoo's courage had taught him an important lesson. Sometimes the right thing to do was also the hardest thing to do. Sometimes you had to face your fear and try anyway. Jiwoo told him she understood. Fear was natural, but fear could be overcome. Knowledge was the weapon against fear. Now that Torvin knew bloodworms could be treated, he would never have to abandon another creature. He could help instead. That was growth. That was learning. That was what mattered. That evening, Jiwoo sat in her quarters with Luna curled up on her lap. The little Mira was purring softly. The sound was peaceful and comforting. Jiwoo stroked Luna's soft fur and thought about the past year. So much had changed. So many lives had been saved. So much good had come from one small act of courage. There was a knock on her door. She called for the person to come in. It was a young human man. He looked about 20 years old. His name was Junho. He had just arrived at the station that morning. He was a new medical intern. He had come to Station Harmony specifically to study under Jiwoo. Junho said he was ready to start his training. He wanted to learn everything. He wanted to help save lives the way Jiwoo did. He wanted to make a difference. Jiwoo smiled. She liked his enthusiasm. She liked his determination. He reminded her of herself when she was younger. She told him they had a lot of work to do. There was a new challenge waiting for them. The Zentari had a problem with fungal infections. They thought these infections were impossible to cure. But Jiwoo had been researching. She had ideas. She thought they could prove the Zentari wrong. She thought they could save lives that everyone else had given up on. Junho grinned. He said he was ready. He wanted to help. He wanted to learn. He wanted to show the galaxy what humans could do. Jiwoo told him to get some rest. They would start work in the morning. There was no rush. Good medicine took time and patience. After Junho left, Jiwoo looked down at Luna. The little Mira was sleeping peacefully now. Her breathing was slow and steady. Her fur rose and fell gently with each breath. She looked so healthy, so content, so alive. It was hard to believe this was the same creature who had been dying a year ago, the same creature everyone had given up on. Luna had taught the galaxy an important lesson. She had shown everyone that impossible was just a word, that giving up was a choice, not a requirement, that with courage and knowledge and determination, even the darkest situation could be turned around. Even the most hopeless case could become a success story. In the years that followed, Station Harmony became the premier medical facility in the galaxy. Doctors came from every corner of known space to study there. They learned human medical techniques. They learned about fighting diseases. They learned about never giving up. And they took that knowledge back to their own worlds. They saved lives. They made a difference. They carried forward the lesson that Luna and Jiwoo had taught. Luna lived a long and happy life. She stayed with Jiwoo always. She greeted patients. She comforted the scared. She reminded everyone why the work mattered. When young doctors felt discouraged, when treatment seemed impossible, when patients seemed too far gone, someone would always point to Luna. They would say, "Remember the Mira who survived. Remember that humans never give up. Remember that there is always hope." The story of Dr. Jiwoo and Luna spread across the stars. It became a legend, a story told to medical students, a story that inspired generations of doctors to be brave, to be determined, to believe that every life was worth fighting for, no matter how impossible it seemed, no matter how dangerous, no matter what. The galaxy learned what humans had always known. Life was precious. Life was worth saving. And when humans promised to save you, they meant it. They would fight against impossible odds. They would face any danger. They would never stop trying. Because that was the human way. That was what made humans special. Not their strength, not their technology, but their refusal to give up. Their belief that every life mattered. Their courage in the face of fear. And it all started with one small Mira. One abandoned creature. One life that everyone else thought was already lost. But one human doctor saw differently. She saw a patient. She saw a chance. She saw hope. And she refused to let that hope die. That was the real miracle. Not the medicine, not the treatment, but the courage to try when everyone else had given up. The determination to fight when everyone else had run away. The love for life that refused to be defeated by fear. That was the human way. And the galaxy was better for it. Jiwoo worked through the night without stopping. The medical bay was silent except for the soft beeping of machines and the quiet hum of equipment. She had given the Mira fluids and nutrients through the IV line. The little creature was resting now, but its breathing was still too fast. Its fever was still too high. Time was running out. She decided to give the Mira a name. It felt wrong to keep calling it just the Mira. This creature deserved a name. Jiwoo looked at its beautiful silver-gray fur. It reminded her of moonlight on water. She decided to name it Luna. Luna meant moon in several Earth languages. It was a good name for such a gentle creature. While Luna rested, Jiwoo studied the bloodworms. She used the scanner to take detailed images. She used a tiny needle to take samples of Luna's blood. She looked at the blood under her microscope. What she saw was fascinating and terrible at the same time. The bloodworms were very thin, almost like threads. They were black and slightly transparent. Under the microscope, Jiwoo could see that they had tiny hooks all along their bodies. These hooks helped them attach to blood vessels and organs. They also had mouths with sharp teeth. Very, very small teeth, but sharp enough to cut through tissue. The worms moved slowly through the blood. They seemed to avoid certain parts of the body. Jiwoo noticed they stayed away from the heart and brain. This was smart. If they damaged those organs too early, the host would die quickly. The worms wanted to keep the host alive as long as possible. That way they had more time to feed and reproduce. Jiwoo compared the bloodworms to parasites from Earth. She found several similarities. The bloodworms were like hookworms, which attached to intestines. They were also like liver flukes, which lived in organs. They were even a bit like heartworms, which lived in blood vessels. All of these Earth parasites had one thing in common. They could be killed with medicine. The right medicine could destroy them without killing the host. But would Earth medicine work on alien parasites? Jiwoo needed advice. She needed to talk to an expert. She looked at the clock. It was late at night on the station, but it would be early morning on Earth. Perfect timing. She opened a communication channel to Earth. She called Dr. Minho, an old friend from medical school. Minho specialized in tropical diseases and parasites. If anyone could help her, it was him. The screen lit up and Minho's face appeared. He was sitting in his office with a cup of coffee in his hand. He smiled when he saw Jiwoo. He asked how she was doing in space. He said he missed having her around. Then he saw her serious expression and his smile faded. He asked what was wrong. Jiwoo explained everything. She told him about Luna. She told him about the bloodworms. She showed him the scans and the microscope images. Minho leaned closer to his screen, studying everything carefully. His expression became more and more serious. After several minutes, Minho sat back. He said this was very bad. The infection was severe, but it was not impossible to treat. The structure of the bloodworms was very similar to Earth parasites. That meant Earth medicine might work on them. Jiwoo asked what he recommended. Minho said she should start with a basic anti-parasitic drug, the same kind used to treat hookworms and roundworms in animals on Earth. But she had to be very careful. She should start with a low dose. Too much medicine at once could kill the parasites too quickly. When parasites die inside the body, they release toxins. Too many dead worms at once could poison Luna and kill her. Jiwoo understood. She needed to kill the worms slowly, give Luna's body time to filter out the dead parasites and their toxins. It would take longer, but it was safer. Minho also told her to give Luna supportive care. Lots of fluids to help the kidneys flush out toxins. Nutrients to keep the body strong. Medicine to protect the liver. The body would do most of the healing work itself. Jiwoo just needed to give it the tools to fight back. Before ending the call, Minho said something that Jiwoo would remember forever. He said this was why Earth life was so strong. Life on Earth had to fight every single day. Fight against diseases, fight against parasites, fight against predators and weather and everything else. That constant struggle made Earth creatures tough. It made them survivors, and it gave humans the knowledge to heal things that other species thought were impossible. Jiwoo thanked Minho and ended the call. She looked over at Luna. The little Mira was sleeping now. Her breathing was a bit slower. The fluids were helping, but the bloodworms were still there, still feeding, still slowly killing her. It was time to try the treatment. Jiwoo went to her medicine cabinet. She had anti-parasitic drugs. She always kept them in stock because sometimes traders brought animals to the station. Those animals sometimes had parasites. She pulled out a small bottle and carefully measured a dose. It was a very small amount, just enough to start the fight against the bloodworms without overwhelming Luna's body. She injected the medicine into Luna's IV line. The clear liquid mixed with the fluids and flowed into Luna's body. Now all Jiwoo could do was wait and watch. She pulled a chair close to the examination table and sat down. She kept her eyes on the monitors. Heart rate, blood pressure, oxygen levels, temperature, every number was important. Any change could mean something good or something bad. An hour passed. Then 2 hours. Nothing changed. Luna kept sleeping. The monitors kept beeping steadily. Jiwoo started to worry. Maybe the medicine was not working. Maybe bloodworms were too different from Earth parasites. Maybe she had made a terrible mistake, but then, in the 3rd hour, something changed. Jiwoo noticed it first on the scanner. The dark lines under Luna's skin were moving differently. They were moving slower, more sluggishly, like they were getting tired or weak. She zoomed in on the scanner image. Yes, the bloodworms were definitely slowing down. Some of them had stopped moving completely. They were dying. The medicine was working. Jiwoo felt a wave of relief wash over her. But she could not celebrate yet. This was just the beginning. She needed to watch Luna carefully. She needed to make sure the dying worms did not poison her. She increased the fluid rate slightly to help Luna's kidneys work better. She added vitamins to the IV to keep Luna's body strong. By morning, about 20% of the bloodworms had died. Luna's fever had come down slightly. Her breathing was a little bit easier. These were good signs. Very good signs. Other medical staff started arriving for the day shift. They saw Jiwoo sitting by the examination table. They saw the Mira sleeping there. Word spread quickly through the station. The human doctor was trying to save a creature with bloodworms. Everyone thought she was crazy. Everyone knew bloodworm infections were death sentences, but Jiwoo did not care what anyone thought. She kept working. Every few hours she gave Luna another small dose of medicine. Every time more worms died. Every time Luna got a little bit stronger. On the second day, Luna opened her eyes fully for the first time. She looked around the medical bay with clear golden eyes. When Jiwoo came close, Luna made a small sound. Not a whimper this time, a chirp. Like she was saying hello, Jiwoo smiled. She reached out carefully and stroked Luna's head. Luna pushed against her hand gently. She was asking for more pets, for more comfort. This was amazing. 2 days ago, Luna had been too weak to move. Now she was responding to touch. She was showing personality. By the third day, half of the bloodworms were dead. Luna was strong enough to lift her head. She could move her legs a little bit. Jiwoo removed the IV line and offered Luna some food. It was a special liquid food that was easy to digest. Luna sniffed it carefully. Then she started to drink. Slowly at first, then faster. She was hungry. Hunger was a good sign. It meant her body wanted to heal. Jiwoo watched Luna eat and felt tears in her eyes. This was why she became a doctor. This was why she traveled all the way to space. To save lives. To prove that giving up was never the answer. To show that with knowledge and courage and determination, even the impossible could become possible. Luna was living proof of that. 5 days after the Veldans had abandoned Luna, the little Mira was sitting up in her recovery cage. Her golden eyes were bright and alert. Her silver fur was clean now. Jiwoo had gently washed her the day before. Luna had purred during the bath. It was a sound like a soft hum, musical and sweet. The bloodworms were almost completely gone. Only a few remained, and they were weak. Another day or two of treatment and Luna would be completely free of them. It was a miracle. Everyone on the station said so. But Jiwoo knew it was not a miracle. It was science. It was medicine. It was the result of thousands of years of human knowledge about fighting parasites and diseases. News of Luna's recovery spread through the station like wildfire. At first, people did not believe it. They thought it was a mistake. Bloodworm infections were always fatal. Everyone knew that. But then they saw the scans. They saw Luna walking around in her cage. They saw proof that the impossible had happened. That afternoon, Jiwoo heard a knock on the medical bay door. She was surprised. Most people just walked in. A knock meant someone was being very formal, very polite, or very nervous. She opened the door and found Commander Torvin standing there. The Veldan looked different than before. He did not look scared anymore. He looked ashamed. Behind him were 3 other aliens. Jiwoo recognized one of them. It was a Felox. This alien was tall and graceful with the same golden eyes as Luna. She had delicate pointed ears and soft fur that looked like pale gold in the light. Commander Torvin spoke first. He said they had heard rumors about Luna. Incredible rumors. He asked if it was true. Had Jiwoo really saved the Mira? Had she really cured a bloodworm infection? Jiwoo nodded. She invited them all inside. She led them to Luna's recovery cage. Luna was playing with a small toy that Jiwoo had made for her. When she saw the visitors, Luna stopped playing. She looked at them with curiosity, but not fear. The Felox woman stepped forward slowly. She introduced herself as Keeper Lyre. She was a caretaker from the Felox homeworld. Her job was to protect and care for Myris. She said she had traveled across space when she heard about Luna. She had to see for herself if the rumors were true. Lyre knelt down beside the cage. Tears filled her golden eyes. She said this was impossible. Her people had been fighting bloodworm infections for hundreds of years. They had lost thousands of Miras. They had tried everything. Nothing worked. The parasites always won. Jiwoo explained what she had done. She told them about the anti-parasitic medicine. She told them about the supportive care. She told them about treating the infection slowly and carefully. She made it sound simple because to her it was simple. This was basic medicine. This was what humans had been doing for thousands of years. But to the aliens it was not simple at all. Commander Torvin said bloodworms were too dangerous to touch, too dangerous to fight. The only safe thing to do was to destroy the infected host before the parasites could spread. That was what everyone in the galaxy did. That was what his people had always done. Jiwoo understood then why aliens could not cure bloodworm infections. They gave up too easily. They were too afraid. Host alien species came from safe, clean worlds. They never had to deal with constant threats from parasites and diseases. They never developed the knowledge or the courage to fight back. When something seemed dangerous, they ran away. They did not stand and fight, but humans were different. Humans came from Earth. Earth was a death world full of dangers. Parasites, bacteria, viruses, predators, poisonous plants, extreme weather. Everything on Earth tried to kill everything else. Life on Earth was a constant battle, and humans learned to win that battle. They learned to fight. They learned that fear was not a reason to give up. Fear was just a challenge to overcome. Jiwoo opened Luna's cage. Luna walked out slowly and stretched her legs. She had gotten stronger every day. Now she could walk and jump and play like a healthy Mira should. She looked up at Keeper Liray and made a chirping sound. It was a friendly greeting. Liray reached out with a shaking hand. She touched Luna's head very gently. Luna purred and rubbed against her hand. The Felox Keeper began to cry. She said she had given up hope. She thought all Miras with bloodworms were lost forever. But here was Luna, alive and healthy. Here was proof that hope was not lost after all. She asked Jiwoo if she would share her knowledge, if she would teach other doctors how to treat bloodworm infections. There were sick Miras all across the galaxy. Some had been abandoned like Luna. Others were in quarantine waiting to die. They could all be saved if doctors knew what to do. Jiwoo agreed immediately. Of course she would share her knowledge. That was what doctors did. They helped. They healed. They shared what they knew so others could help and heal too. She promised to write down everything. All her notes. All her treatment protocols. All her observations. She would make it available to anyone who needed it. Commander Torvin spoke up. He said he was sorry. Sorry for abandoning Luna. Sorry for not believing that she could be saved. Sorry for running away instead of trying to help. He had been afraid. Fear had made him do something he was not proud of. Jiwoo told him she understood. Fear was a powerful thing, but fear could be overcome with knowledge and courage. Now that he knew bloodworms could be treated, he would not be so afraid next time. He could help instead of running away. That was growth. That was learning. That was good. The visitors stayed for over an hour. They asked many questions. They took notes. They watched Luna play and eat and groom herself. They saw with their own eyes that she was completely healthy. The miracle was real. After they left, Jiwoo sat down with Luna in her lap. The little Mira curled up and started to purr. Her purring sounded like contentment, like happiness, like trust. That night, Jiwoo received messages from all over the galaxy. Scientists wanted her research data. Doctors wanted her treatment protocols. Medical schools wanted her to give lectures. News agencies wanted interviews. Everyone wanted to know how a human had done what no one else could do. Jiwoo answered every message patiently. She sent her notes to anyone who asked. She explained the treatment over and over again. She never got tired of explaining. Every person she taught was another doctor who could save lives. Every piece of knowledge she shared was another tool in the fight against disease. Within days, other doctors across the galaxy started trying the treatment. Some were nervous, some were skeptical, but they tried, and it worked. Sick Mira started to recover. Infections that were death sentences became treatable conditions. Hope spread like light, pushing back darkness, and at the center of it all was Luna, the little Mira who had been abandoned to die. The little Mira who survived because one human doctor refused to give up. Luna became famous. She became a symbol. She became proof that even in the darkest situation, even when everyone else had given up hope, there was still a chance. There was still a way forward. There was still life. Jiwoo watched Luna sleep that night. The little creature looked so peaceful, so content. She had no idea that she had changed the galaxy. She only knew that she was safe. She was loved. She was home, and that was enough. The medical bay of Station Harmony was quiet when Dr. Jiwoo arrived for her night shift. She liked the quiet hours. They gave her time to think, to organize supplies, and to catch up on research. The station floated in deep space, far from any planet. It was a place where many species came together to trade, work, and live. Jiwoo was the only human doctor on the station. Most aliens preferred their own doctors, but sometimes they needed her help. Tonight felt different. Jiwoo could sense something was wrong even before the door opened. She was checking the medicine cabinet when she heard footsteps in the hallway. Heavy footsteps. Multiple people walking fast. The door slid open with a hiss. A tall alien with blue skin and forearms walked in quickly. His face looked worried. Behind him, two other aliens of the same species carried something between them. It was a metal cage covered with a dirty cloth. The cage was small, about the size of a pet carrier from Earth. Jiwoo recognized the species. They were Veldans. They were traders who traveled all across the galaxy. They were usually calm and professional. But today, these Veldans looked scared. The leader wore a name badge that said Commander Torvin. Commander Torvin stopped a few steps away from Jiwoo. He would not come closer. His hands were shaking slightly. The other two Veldans set the cage down on the floor and stepped back quickly, as if the cage might explode. Jiwoo frowned. She put down her medical tablet and walked toward them. The Veldans stepped back even more. This was very strange behavior. Veldans were not usually afraid of anything. Commander Torvin spoke first. His voice was stiff and formal, but Jiwoo could hear the fear underneath. He said they needed to leave something at the medical bay, something they could not keep on their ship anymore, something dangerous. Jiwoo asked what was in the cage. She moved closer to look. The cloth covering it was stained with something dark. It might have been blood. There was a small sound from inside the cage. A weak, sad sound like a whimper. Torvin explained that inside the cage was a mira. A mira was a companion animal from a species called the Felox. The Felox people loved their miras the way humans loved cats or dogs. Miras were smart and loyal. They were also beautiful, with soft fur and gentle eyes. But this mira was sick. Very, very sick. Jiwoo knelt down beside the cage. She asked what kind of sickness the mira had. She was a doctor. She had treated many strange alien diseases before. Maybe she could help this creature too. One of the other Veldans spoke up quickly. He said the mira had bloodworms. His voice was full of horror when he said that word. Bloodworms. As if it was the worst thing in the universe. Jiwoo had heard of bloodworms before, but she did not know much about them. She asked the Veldans to explain. They told her that bloodworms were parasites that lived inside the body. They moved through the blood and ate the flesh from the inside. They spread very fast. They could jump from one creature to another through touch. And worst of all, there was no cure. Everyone in the galaxy knew this. Once you had bloodworms, you would die within days. The Veldans said they brought the mira to Jiwoo because they had heard that humans were different. Humans came from a death world, a planet so dangerous that it tried to kill everything that lived there. Humans faced diseases and parasites and predators every single day. They learned to survive things that would kill any other species. Maybe, the Veldans said, maybe a human doctor would not be afraid. Maybe a human doctor could at least end the mira's suffering quickly and painlessly. Jiwoo pulled back the cloth covering the cage. What she saw made her heart ache. Inside was a small creature about the size of a house cat from Earth. It had soft gray fur that reminded her of moonlight. Its ears were pointed and delicate. Its eyes were large and golden like drops of honey. It looked so much like the cats Jiwoo had loved as a child. But this mira was dying. That was clear. Its fur was dirty and matted with dried blood. Its body was so thin that Jiwoo could see its ribs. Its breathing was fast and shallow. And under its skin, Jiwoo could see something moving. Thin dark lines that twisted and turned like black threads. The bloodworms. The mira looked up at Jiwoo with those golden eyes. There was pain in those eyes and fear, but there was also something else. Hope. The tiny creature somehow knew that Jiwoo might help. It made a small sound, half meow and half whimper. It was asking for help in the only way it could. Commander Torvin spoke again. He said they were sorry. They did not want to leave the mira here to die. But they had no choice. The bloodworms were too dangerous. If they kept the mira on their ship, the parasites might spread to the crew. They could not risk that. They had families waiting for them at home. So they brought the mira here and asked Jiwoo to do what they could not, either save it or end its pain. Then the Veldans left. They turned and walked out of the medical bay quickly. They almost ran. The door closed behind them with a soft sound, and Jiwoo was alone with the dying mira. She stood there for a moment, looking down at the cage. The mira looked back at her, waiting, hoping, trusting. Jiwoo made her decision. She knelt down and spoke softly to the mira. She told it not to worry. She told it she was not going to give up. She was not going to let it die without a fight. That was not the human way. She opened the cage door slowly and carefully. The Mira did not move. It was too weak. Jiwoo put on thick medical gloves that went all the way up to her elbows. Then she reached in and gently lifted the Mira out of the cage. It was so light. Too light. Like it was made of paper and air instead of flesh and bone. The Mira's heart was beating very fast against Jiwoo's hands. Like a tiny drum racing out of control. She could feel how hot the creature was. It had a fever. That was bad. The fever meant the body was fighting hard, but it was losing the battle. Jiwoo carried the Mira to the examination table. She placed it down gently on a soft pad. The Mira tried to lift its head but could not. It was too exhausted. Jiwoo stroked its head carefully with one gloved finger. The Mira's eyes closed for a moment. Maybe it felt a little bit of comfort. Maybe it had not been touched gently in a long time. She turned on the medical scanner. It was a machine that could see inside a body without cutting it open. The scanner hummed as it worked. Information appeared on the screen. Jiwoo read the data and her breath caught in her throat. This was worse than she thought. The bloodworms were everywhere. They were in the blood vessels. They were in the muscles. They were wrapped around organs. There were hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. They looked like tiny black snakes on the screen, all moving slowly through the Mira's body. They were eating the creature from the inside out. Jiwoo pulled up her medical database on the computer. She searched for bloodworms. The information that came up was not good. Bloodworms were considered one of the most dangerous parasites in the galaxy. Most species treated them by destroying the infected host. It was the only way to make sure the parasites did not spread. There was no known cure, no successful treatment, nothing. But Jiwoo was human, and humans were different. Humans came from Earth, a world that was full of parasites and diseases. Humans had spent thousands of years learning how to fight these things. They had developed medicines and treatments for infections that seemed impossible to cure. Humanity's greatest strength was that they never gave up. They always found a way. Jiwoo looked at the Mira again. The little creature was watching her with those golden eyes. It seemed to understand that Jiwoo was its only hope. Its last hope. She smiled at the Mira. She told it that it had come to the right place. She told it that humans did not believe in impossible. She told it that she was going to save its life. And she meant every word. Jiwoo began to work. First, she needed to stabilize the Mira. It needed fluids because it was very dehydrated. It needed nutrients because it had not eaten in days. It needed medicine to bring down the fever. She inserted a tiny IV line into one of the Mira's legs. The creature made a small sound of pain, but it did not try to pull away. It seemed to know that Jiwoo was trying to help. As the fluids dripped into the Mira's body, Jiwoo went to her computer. She started researching. She read everything she could find about bloodworms. She compared them to parasites from Earth. She looked for similarities. She looked for weaknesses. She looked for anything that might help her save this creature's life. The night was long. The work was hard, but Jiwoo did not stop. She had made a promise to the Mira, and humans always kept their promises.